Joining me in our DC studio is Simon Lester, Associate Director for the Center for Trade Policy Studies at the Cato Institute, a think tank here in Washington. Simon, welcome to our program. Let me ask you what I asked our correspondent, Nathan King. The fact that you have Robert Lighthizer, Treasury Secretary Robert Mnuchin heading to China, do you think this, in fact, will lay the groundwork for some kind of compromise?
I hope so. So what we've seen so far is tariff escalation and the beginnings of WTO litigation as China has challenged the U.S. at the WTO. Now, hopefully, we see some negotiation. And I think this is the early rounds of it. I would be surprised if they can work something out over the next week, although many surprising things have been happening in trade policy recently. But I think the way you put it is good. I hope that this lays the foundation, sort of the framework for some future deal.
When the tariffs on steel and aluminum were announced, just a few days after that, we heard about another $50 billion having to do with intellectual property. Then a few days later, another $100 billion. So this back and forth threats, the tit for tats that have been going on, what will you be looking for in the next, at that point, they said there would be a 60-day public hearing, talking, negotiation. Is there anything specific we should be looking for in the next month or so before things get even more heated, possibly?
Well, what I would expect, I think as your correspondent said, the Trump administration, I think in many areas, is trying to create leverage and put pressure on people. So I don't think they'll pull back. I think they'll act like they're pushing forward with this. They'll get comments on the tariffs and they will commit to imposing them, and they won't want to show any weakness there. But behind the scenes, we will have these negotiations, and maybe we'll hear some leaks about specific things the U.S. is asking for. And at that point, we'll be able to maybe determine, is this something China can actually give? And so we have a better sense of whether a deal is actually possible.
Simon, China says, no one wins from a trade war. They say they're not afraid of one, but no one wins from it. And then earlier on, we heard from Donald Trump, who said trade wars are good and easy to win. Are they?
They're not. I think he's wrong about this, and I think most economists who would say he's wrong about this. I think that trade wars are very detrimental to the economies of the countries starting them and the countries on the receiving end of them. At the same time, I would say I do think there are real concerns about some of China's trade practices. The question is just, well, how best do we address that? And I think the better approach would be a unified front among a number of countries working together through the WTO. This sort of unilateral approach is it's always going to get a bad reaction.
Which seems to be Donald Trump's motto, doing things unilaterally, which is interesting to me. I'm not sure if that is really the right approach here. I'm not an expert. But beyond the impact on U.S. China relations, the economic factor, the political factor, what about the global implications? IMF Director Christine Lagarde said the World Trade Order is now in danger of being torn apart. Those are pretty powerful words there.
They're powerful words, but they're not much of an exaggeration. So for many years now, for decades, we've had the rules of the World Trade Organization to govern how countries relate to each other on trade. And some of the U.S. actions and some of the responses of other countries clearly go against those rules. And so when you have this spread of countries not complying with the rules of the World Trade Organization, you just worry that it will get out of control and the whole system will no longer function. I don't think we're getting close to that yet. We've just taken little tiny steps, but even the tiny steps are worrying, and we'd like to step back a bit.
All right, we'll leave it there. Simon Lester, thank you so much.
Thank you.